nominal compounded rate of return was about 25%. That was at the low side. On the high side, obviously, much higher. Over the last decade, I believe on average, there's about 70% annual compounded return on average, right? And so I think duration is really important. You should not own Bitcoin if you might need that money in 6 months or a year, because as volatility exists, you have to have the ability to manage through duration. And I think that's where people get hurt, is they buy it, they don't hold it, and they go up. And Bitcoin is very different than other cryptos as well, because there's a limited supply. It is a store of value that people have accepted and adopted as well, and not all cryptos are created equally in the same either. And so I think as we think through kind of the business, people should own Bitcoin, they should own an ETF, they should own American Bitcoin, if they're willing to put that capital in and truly hold it as a long-term store of value. And then as you allow for duration to happen, in 5 years you're like, look, I'm up X amount of money, I want to take it off the table, and so be it. But it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And cycle over cycle, volatility is getting lower and lower. And you saw that recently with some of the kind of the cyclicality this year as well. And as volatility gets lower, your cost of capital will get lower. You might be able to borrow against it at a bank. You might be able to use that money to, let's say you have $1 million of Bitcoin, you might be able to pull $500,000 to go buy a house or whatever it may be. With volatility, no one's going to lend against that because it becomes harder. And if they do lend against it, the cost of capital is higher. They'll take a lower LTC and so forth.
All right, Eric, as somebody who seems legitimately interested in how Bitcoin can help the average person, right now in America there's a very distressing stat, which is 10% of Americans own 93% of the assets. I think this is a big problem given that inflation over the last 5 years, you stretch it out, as 25%. Obviously it's come way down, but it's still a very damaging thing over time. How would you like to see Bitcoin be used by the average person to essentially get on the asset ladder?
Well, listen, we believe in investors, we believe in great assets, and great assets build great wealth. And I truly believe that Bitcoin's a great asset. That's why I'm buying it, and that's why I think some of the wealthiest people around the world, some of the wealthiest countries around the world, the biggest sovereign wealth funds around the world, some of the biggest Fortune 500s around the world now are all treasuring Bitcoin because they believe it's a great asset and it has so many great inherent principles to it. So I want to see people get involved in cryptocurrency. As I said before, I think we're on the 1 yard line. Right now, cryptocurrency, as just overall kind of crypto market, is roughly where the internet was in 1999. Think about that. That's how much growth you have ahead of us. Right now, I have a great kind of example of a friend of mine. He runs one of the biggest bank in the country. He runs their private wealth office in Greenwich, Connecticut. One of my best friends, he came up to me 18 months ago, he goes, Eric, Bitcoin is funny money. And he calls me a couple months ago and he goes, I'm recommending that all of my clients invest 2 to 5% in cryptocurrency, most specifically Bitcoin. Guys, we're winning this race right now. We're winning this race. The dam is starting to break. And be careful of inflation, right? I think Biden did the greatest disservice to America of any president in history with his inflationary policies. You know who that benefits? That benefits guys like me, right? It benefits guys with hard assets. Why? Because if a 2x4 used to cost $3 and now a 2x4 costs $12, if you have a home and you've got 10,000 2x4s in it, congratulations. The price of your house just went up by $40,000, right? It's very simple math, right? If you own a lot of 2x4s, if you own a lot of steel, and the price of those commodities goes out massively, you know who that benefits? That benefits the person who owns hard assets. You know who that absolutely crushes? That crushes the young guy, the young girl who just came out of school and is trying to build up the American dream, and shame on him for allowing it to happen. And honestly, Bitcoin is the solution to so much of it. I think we're going to have monumental growth. I believe in it with every ounce of my soul. And if you can put your money in it versus putting it in what? What are you going to put it in? Munis? Treasuries where you're probably going backward? All of a sudden you can have real yield. You can really save. You can apply it to your 401ks. Your 401ks can actually become something meaningful over time. I mean, wow, what financial freedom does that give you? And then, not just that, how about the actual access to capital that you deserve? You go to JP Morgan and you want to take out a loan. You can be sitting there for 120 days going through a Know Your Customer, versus we're on the precipice of being easily able to borrow against your holdings, money that you have, assets that you have. You know, you have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, you go and you can borrow 80% of it, right? You can take an asset that's appreciating on average at that 60 to 70% that we see year over year, and you can borrow off an asset that continues to appreciate. So you can buy your first home, or you can start your first business, or you can try and live the American dream, or you can, you know, buy something that you've always wanted. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that financial freedom? You know, go to JP Morgan and try and do that. Good luck. They'll laugh at you. They'll laugh at you unless you want hundreds of millions of dollars from them and you've got a last name like ours, right? And that's not financial freedom. In fact, I truly believe that cryptocurrency is financial freedom to the masses that's never existed before and have only existed to a very select few. It's been incredibly punitive, and I think Bitcoin and I think the entire crypto industry is going to change that in a massive way. So there's no person in the world that wants to see this industry beat the big banks more than I do. And I think Bitcoin's going to lead the way, and I think we're really on the front end of a great financial revolution.
We are unfortunately out of time, gentlemen, but I do have one question to ask here to send us out. So, Eric, freedom has come up multiple times in this conversation. You guys could have named the company anything that you wanted, but you named it American Bitcoin. Why? What does that mean to you?
Well, because we freaking love Bitcoin, and we absolutely adore America, right? So American Bitcoin. And by the way, it was actually this guy right here. So we're having, I freaking love this guy. I love this guy. Can you become our cheerleader for American Bitcoin? Because this is our kind of energy.
I don't think you can stop him.
So we're sitting there, we're sitting there having a meal at an Italian restaurant. We go, what are we calling this thing? And I said, it has to have two words in it. It has to have America, and it has to be Bitcoin. And he goes, how about we call it American Bitcoin? About 5 minutes later, we spent a lot of money doing it, but we bought the website, we registered the ticker symbol, and how cool is ABTC on the NASDAQ? ABTC. I think it's the first ticker symbol on the NASDAQ, and I think we're going to be the greatest company of all. So, guys, great things ahead, and two of the most talented people you've ever seen in your entire lives right here, and I'm incredibly proud to be partnered with them.
All right, give it up for this incredible panel, everybody.